The tribunal chamber glowed with the sterile brilliance of alien architecture. Transparent panels shimmered with the pale blue light of 1,000 suns, but no warmth reached the humans gathered on the platform. They stood in chains, silent, as a chorus of alien voices passed judgment. "Humans!" declared High Chancellor Zale, his voice resonant and cold. "You are a species of violence, contagion, and defiance. For the sake of galactic stability, you are hereby exiled to Vera 9, a death world from which none return." A hush spread through the chamber. The council's delegates, scaled, feathered, and crystalline, nodded approval. In their minds, the sentence was not cruelty, but containment. Vera 9 was infamous across the stars. Volcanic eruptions, poisoned seas, predators that hunted in packs the size of armies. The perfect grave. Commander Elias Voss, 41, stood straight despite the magnetic shackles locking his wrists. A decorated fleet officer stripped of his commission, he had become the reluctant face of humanity's resistance. His black eyes narrowed, but his lips curved into the faintest smile. The aliens mistook it for fear. They did not recognize defiance when it came wrapped in calm. "You think you've ended us," Voss said, his voice carrying through the chamber like steel dragged across stone. "But history isn't kind to those who underestimate my people." The Chancellor's frilled neck flushed purple. "Defiance, even at the end. You will feed the soil of Vera 9. Perhaps your bones will serve as a warning." "Or as foundation," Voss murmured. The tribunal ended. Chains clamped tighter. Within hours, a fleet of escort ships ferried humanity's exiles to the edge of mapped space. 2,000 men, women, and children packed into transport hulls, surrounded by guards who didn't bother hiding their glee. The aliens saw no future in them, only a sentence card read out. Beta 9 des Sesame. Vevena 9 filled the viewport. A swirling mass of oceans, thick with storms, land carved by molten rivers, jungles so dense they seemed to crawl. The transports shuddered as they entered atmosphere. Lightning split the skies, painting the storm clouds a violent gold. Inside the main hold, families clung together, fear clawing at their throats. But Voss remained still, standing at the front. He studied the planet as if memorizing a battlefield map. "You've been quiet, Commander," said Dr. Marakin, 35, a xenobiologist pressed into exile for refusing to falsify her research for the Council. She adjusted her broken spectacles, her sharp eyes scanning his face. "Are you planning to give us one of those speeches now?" "No speeches," Voss replied. "Just strategy." Mara raised a brow. "Strategy? On a planet designed to kill us in hours?" "Designed?" Voss asked softly. "No. It's alive. Which means it can be understood. Which means we can survive it." A murmur of doubt rippled through those close enough to hear. But in their fear, the certainty of his tone became an anchor. The transport slammed into Vera 9's surface. Metal shrieked as hulls tore across blackened earth. When the hatch finally blasted open, the exiles spilled out into choking air heavy with heat and ash. Above them, jagged mountains belched smoke into a blood-red sky. "Stay together!" Voss barked, unshackled now by necessity. He scanned the terrain. Lava plains to the west, jungle to the east, a river carving between. Dangerous everywhere, but the river meant resources. "We move east." The jungle greeted them with a cacophony of alien life. Towering trees glistened with iridescent bark, their roots snaking across the ground like coiled predators. Insects the size of fists buzzed past. Something roared in the distance, low and guttural. Fear gnawed at the group. Some whispered prayers, others cursed the tribunal. "This is suicide," muttered Jaren, a farmer from the colonies, clutching his daughter. "We'll never last a week." "We'll last longer if we stop announcing our position," Voss said sharply. "Quiet. Observe. Breathe." They obeyed. By nightfall, they reached a ridge overlooking the river. Steam rose from its surface, carrying the scent of minerals. The predator's roars echoed nearer. "We can't stay out in the open," Mara said. "But we can't build shelter in this jungle either. Not without tools." Voss crouched, pressing his hand into the soil. Rich, fertile. A world that devoured the careless, but one that could reward discipline. "We'll build here. High ground by water. The council thought this was our grave. They've given us a fortress instead." Mara studied him, torn between disbelief and awe. "You sound like you're planning more than survival." Voss glanced at the frightened families huddled together, then back at the hostile paradise around them. His jaw tightened. "Survival isn't enough. If they meant this place to kill us, then living here isn't Vixaideste. Tori, it's defiance. We'll thrive, and when they look back, they won't see a graveyard." "Then what will they see?" Voss's faint smile returned. "A resort." The first night tested them. Strange eyes glimmered in the undergrowth. Predators circled, their growls vibrating through the ground. Voss organized shifts. Watchers armed with sharpened scrap metal. Fires lit from debris. Fear nearly broke them, but morning came. And with morning, the first spark of something else. Resilience. Children laughed at the sight of brilliantly colored birds swooping above. Farmers inspected the soil and murmured possibilities. Mara catalogued plants, her scientist's mind already racing with potential cures, food sources, medicines. Even Jaren, who had spoken of death the night before, stood straighter. Maybe we can do this," he whispered. Voss didn't answer. He simply looked out at the jungle, his thoughts racing faster than the river below. This world was cruel, yes, but humans had always made homes in cruelty. If the galaxy thought they'd buried Earth's children here, they were about to learn the oldest lesson of all. Humans didn't just survive, they built. The second day dawned red and unforgiving. Heat shimmered from the volcanic ridges to the west, and the dense jungle steamed like a living furnace. The exiles gathered near the ridge, their faces lined with exhaustion, eyes darting at every rustle. Commander Voss stood at the edge of the cliff, scanning the river below. His boots sank into ash-rich soil, and a plan sharpened in his mind. "Listen up," he said, turning to the crowd. "The council expects us to cower until the jungle devours us. That won't happen. Today, we start building." A ripple of disbelief ran through the group. Tools were scarce, materials limited. They had scraps of hull plating, torn cargo nets, and the strength of their hands. Nothing more. Marakin pushed forward, brushing sweat from her brow. "You're serious? Yesterday we were running from predators, and today you want construction projects?" "Not want," Voss corrected. "Need. A safe shelter, a water system, food storage. If we wait until desperation forces us, it'll be too late." A murmur rose, fear, doubt, but also the spark of direction. Jaren stepped up, his daughter clinging to his leg. "What exactly are you thinking, Commander?" Voss pointed toward the ridge. "We use the high ground. Defensive advantage. Hull plating for walls. Nets for roofing. Ash in the soil means crops will grow if we're smart about it. And the river will be our lifeline." Mara crossed her arms. "You make it sound like we're laying foundations for a colony, not a camp." "That's exactly what we're doing," Voss said evenly. Work began awkwardly, like children imitating adults. Hands unused to labor blistered quickly. Arguments broke out. Where to set walls, how to lash plating, who carried what. But Voss moved among them, breaking disputes with a steady voice, and lending his own strength to every task. "Use the vines," he instructed the two men struggling with beams. "Strong as cables. Twist, don't tie. Let the tension hold." He hauled wreckage with them, sweat slicking his back. When one woman collapsed, he lifted the beam she'd dropped and carried it himself without a word. Mara watched from the shade, scribbling notes on scavenged fragments of metal with a sharpened stone. She catalogued plants, analyzed the soil, tracked the insects that swarmed their fires at dusk. At one point, she approached Voss, holding up a pale blue root. This plant secretes an alkaline compound, potential antiseptic, but it's also mildly toxic if ingested. Good, Voss said, not missing a swing of his makeshift hammer. Mark it near the camp. We'll need it for wounds. You're assuming we'll be here long enough to worry about wounds, Mara said dryly. I'm assuming we'll be here long enough to heal them. She studied him for a moment. His certainty irritated her, yet it also steadied her pulse. He carried something the rest lacked, a vision that didn't end in death. By nightfall, rough barricades encircled their chosen ground. Fires burned at intervals, their smoke drifting into the jungle like a warning. The air throbbed with alien cries, but none dared breach the glowing perimeter. Children slept piled in the center, their parents forming protective rings around them. The air was heavy with exhaustion, but for the first time since the exile, it wasn't despair. Voss remained awake, seated at the edge of the camp, staring into the darkness. Mara sat down beside him, brushing dirt from her trousers. You didn't sleep last night either. Planning to keep that up? Sleep is a luxury until we're stable. You mean until we're thriving, she countered. A small smile ghosted across his lips. Now you're catching on. For a moment, silence stretched between them, broken only by the jungle's restless chorus. You know, Mara said finally, most commanders would focus only on survival, food, shelter, avoiding predators. But you're aiming higher. Why? Voss's eyes didn't leave the shadows. Because survival is temporary. If all we do is survive, we'll always live in fear of the next storm, the next beast, the next nightfall. I won't condemn our people to that. We build something lasting, or we die building it. Mara exhaled. You make it sound simple. It's not. That's why it'll work. The third morning brought their first real test. A scream tore through the camp as shapes burst from the tree line. Sleek predators with obsidian hides and serrated maws. 6 of them, moving like shadows, eyes glowing amber in the smoke. Chaos erupted. Families scrambled. Children wailed. The barricades rattled as claws tore at the walls. Hold the line! Voss roared. He snatched a sharpened beam from the ground and thrust it into the first creature that lunged. Its blood hissed like acid, burning into the dirt. Fire! He shouted. Push them back! With fire! Torches flew, smoke thickening. Jaren swung wildly, barely keeping one beast at bay. Another leapt onto the barricade, claws slicing through vines. Mara hurled burning branches, her voice hoarse with command. Keep them moving! They're pack hunters! Don't let them surround us! The humans fought with desperation, but also with unity. For every scream, a counter shout rose. For every claw, a torch. Finally, with guttural roars, the predators retreated into the trees, smoke curling from their hides. Breathless, bloodied, the exiles stood amid the wreckage. No one was dead. That alone felt like victory. Voss stood tall, chest heaving, beam still clenched in his fists. He looked around at his people, their faces streaked with soot and terror. And pride. This, he said, voice raw but steady, is why we build higher than survival. Because survival means waiting for the next attack. But if we build strong enough, hard enough, the predators will be the ones waiting. A hush followed. Then, slowly, a cheer broke. Small at first, then swelling, rolling through the camp like a storm of its own. For the first time, they weren't prisoners or exiles. They were settlers. And the Death World had just been warned. The days that followed the Predator attack changed everything. Fear still lingered in the camp, but it no longer controlled them. Each morning began with purpose. Each night ended with stories instead of silence. Voss pushed them harder than ever. Walls rose higher, reinforced with hull plating and tree trunks stripped of bark. Fires burned brighter, arranged in patterns that discouraged creatures from approaching. But survival wasn't his only aim. One afternoon, Mara found him sketching in the dirt with a piece of charred wood. "What is that supposed to be?" she asked. "A bathhouse," Voss said without looking up. She blinked. "A bathhouse? On a planet where everything tries to kill us?" "Exactly." He tapped the crude drawing. "If we're going to thrive, we need more than walls and spears. We need places to rest, to recover, to remind ourselves we're alive. A bathhouse by the river. Heated pools from volcanic channels. Controlled, safe, even pleasant." Mara crouched, studying the design. "You're serious?" "I don't joke about morale. People need to believe this place can be more than a prison. They need to see a future here." Her lips curved despite herself. "You're insane." "Maybe," Voss admitted. "But insanity is the seed of civilization. The river became their lifeline. Teams learned to channel water using carved troughs from massive reeds. Farmers experimented with soil plots. Children discovered fruiting vines that dripped with honey-like nectar. Sweet but safe." Jeren approached Voss one evening with a grin. "Taste this." He offered a clay bowl, filled with mashed fruit and river herbs. Voss raised a brow, but took a cautious bite. The flavor burst, sweet, sharp, alive. His jaw tightened as he chewed, but the corner of his mouth lifted. "Not bad," he said. "Not bad?" Jaren laughed. "This is the best thing I've eaten since Earth." Word spread. By night, tea fall, families were trading recipes, experimenting with fire-roasted fruits, boiled roots, even grilled insects with a surprising crunch. What began as desperate foraging turned into something else. Cuisine. When Mara teased Voss about it, he only shrugged. Food is survival. Cooking is culture. Culture is how you outlast empires. The bathhouse plan became reality faster than anyone expected. Steam vents from the nearby volcanic ridge fed into stone pools carved with relentless labor. Hull plating served as walls. Vines became roofing. By the 7th day, the first of the pools filled with hot, mineral-rich water. Cautious at first, families stepped inside. The warmth soothed bruises and washed away grime. For the first time since exile, laughter echoed without fear. Children splashed. Adults sighed in relief. Mara floated in the pool, staring up at the alien sky, streaked with 2 moons. "This shouldn't feel like paradise," she murmured. "It isn't paradise," Voss said from the pool's edge, arms crossed. "It's defiance. But if it feels like paradise, even better." She tilted her head at him. "You're not just building a camp, you're building a message." He met her gaze. "Exactly. And the galaxy will hear it, sooner or later." Trouble came sooner. A hunting party returned one night, carrying strange fragments. Shattered metal, blackened by age. Not human. Not natural. "Wreckage," one scout said, dropping the pieces before Voss. "Found half buried in the jungle." Mara crouched beside it, brushing dirt from the alloy. Her eyes widened. "This isn't from our transports. This is alien tech, old but advanced." The camp gathered, murmuring. The implication was clear. Others had been here before, and they hadn't survived. Voss studied the fragments, silent. Then he spoke. "This planet kills the careless. We're not careless. We'll learn from whoever came before, and we'll outlast them." But Mara saw the flicker in his eyes, the weight he carried alone. Whoever left this wreckage had likely thought the same. 2 nights later, thunder rolled across the skies. Not weather, engines. A patrol ship descended through the clouds, alien insignia blazing. Its lights swept across the jungle, scanning. They saw Taenti. Exiles froze, fear washing over them. If the council had returned, it could mean eradication. Voss, however, narrowed his eyes. "They're not here to kill us," he muttered. "They're here to confirm our graves." The ship circled once, its scanners flickering. From above, the camp looked like a fortified outpost, Fires arranged in deliberate patterns, steam rising from bathhouses. Not death, not despair. Confusion rippled among the aliens on board. Sensors reported human activity, not extinction. The ship lingered, uncertain, then ascended back into the clouds. Relief swept through the camp, but Voss only clenched his fists tighter. "They've seen us," he said quietly. "And if they've seen us thriving, they'll come back with questions or weapons." Mara touched his arm. "Then why not hide? Let them think it was a mistake." "Because hiding admits they were right to exile us. I won't give them that satisfaction." He turned toward the camp, firelight catching his scarred features. "We'll make this world so undeniable that when they return, it won't look like a prison colony. It'll look like the galaxy's next wonder." She stared at him, realizing with a chill that he meant it. He wasn't building merely for survival or morale. He was shaping something the galaxy couldn't ignore. The next morning, new projects began. Terraced gardens along the ridge, communal halls reinforced with stone, even designs for carved walkways above the jungle floor. The exiles no longer spoke of doom. They spoke of construction schedules, recipes, hot pools, and harvests. Their laughter grew louder than their fear. Veiranaine. Nine had not changed. It was still a predator's paradise, with storms, lava, and beasts lurking in the dark. But the humans had changed. And slowly, unmistakably, the Death World was beginning to look less like exile, and more like a destination. The camp thrived in ways that seemed impossible weeks earlier. Steam baths, terraced gardens, and fortified walls turned exile into settlement. The sound of laughter mingled with hammering, cooking, and song. For the first time since the tribunal, humans began to feel not punished, but liberated. But Voss knew peace never lasted. The warning came at dawn. Scouts stationed along the ridge sprinted into camp, breath ragged. "Ship! North Quadrant! Coming down fast!" Panic rippled, but Voss raised his hand, voice sharp. "No chaos! Everyone to positions! Families inside the barricades! Watchers on the walls!" Within minutes, the exiles formed ranks like a trained militia. They had only spears, nets, and sharpened plating. But discipline made them formidable. The ship descended with a howl, landing just beyond the ridge. Its hull gleamed bronze, alien glyphs etched deep into its sides. Smaller than a council warship, but armed. A gangplank hissed open. Figures emerged, slender, scaled, eyes like burning embers. The Drexari. Mara whispered the name with dread. Raiders. Opportunists. They strip worlds of resources and vanish. Or enslave what they find, Jaren muttered. His daughter clung to him tighter. Voss stepped forward, unarmed but unflinching. His boots struck the dirt with deliberate rhythm as he met the Drexari delegation halfway. Their leader, cloaked in jagged armor, sneered. "Humans, exiles, curious. You were supposed to be bones by now." "Disappointed?" Voss asked calmly. The Drexari's grin revealed needle-like teeth. "Quite the opposite. You've done the hard work already. Settled, built, tamed. We'll take it from here." Mara hissed it under her breath. "They'll strip us for labor." Voss didn't look back. "This camp is ours. You'll get nothing." The Drexari leader tilted his head. "Bull. But there are 30 of us, armed. You have sharpened sticks. Yukiku cannot win." "Maybe," Voss admitted, "but you'll bleed before you take anything from us. And if you've studied humans at all, you know one thing. We make bleeding very expensive." The Drexari chuckled, amused but cautious. "Interesting. Still, resistance is wasteful." He snapped his claws. His warriors fanned out, weapons humming. Voss lifted his voice, carrying across the barricades. "Now!" The humans moved as one. Nets dropped from the trees, woven thick with vines, tangling Drexari limbs. Spears jabbed from gaps in the walls, striking fast. Fires roared to life, filling the clearing with choking smoke. Chaos exploded. The Drexari weren't expecting coordination. 2 fell immediately, pinned under burning nets. Another was dragged screaming into the barricade, where sharpened plating finished the job. But their weapons were real. Beams of plasma tore through wood and stone. A section of wall collapsed in sparks. Humans scattered, scrambling for cover. Mara grabbed a fallen weapon, its grip still warm from Drexari claws. She fired blindly, the blast sizzling through the smoke. A raider shrieked and fell. "These things aren't so complicated," she shouted, adrenaline surging. Voss fought like the walls themselves, immovable, relentless. He disarmed one Drexari with a twist, drove a spear into another's throat, and hurled a torch to ignite spilled fuel. Fire spread, turning the battlefield into an inferno. The Drexari leader snarled, advancing through the smoke toward Voss. "You think this world belongs to you? You're vermin clinging to a carcass." Voss wiped blood from his cheek, eyes locked on the alien. "Funny, that's exactly how we describe raiders." They clashed, plasma blade against the spear, sparks showering with each strike. The Drexari pressed hard, strength and speed in his favor, but Voss's grip was steady, every movement precise. Finally, with a brutal thrust, he drove the spear through the raider's armor and into the ground. The leader choked, blood bubbling, then collapsed. The remaining Drexari faltered, their formation broken. Humans surged, pressing advantage. Within minutes, the raiders fled, retreating to their ship. Engines roared as it lifted into the sky, trailing smoke and shame. Silence fell over the battlefield. Ash drifted in the air like snow. The humans stood among wreckage and bodies, bloodied but alive. Cheers broke, ragged and fierce. Mara leaned against a shattered wall, chest heaving. "We just fought off armed raiders with sticks and torches." Voss retrieved a fallen plasma blade, weighing it in his hand. "Not anymore," he said. "Now we have their weapons, and their attention." That night, the camp celebrated, though exhaustion tempered the joy. Fires burned high, food passed hand to hand, songs rising into the alien night. For the first time, they didn't feel like prey. But Voss remained apart, sharpening the plasma blade against the stone. Mara approached, wiping soot from her face. "You should rest," she said. He didn't look up. "They'll be back, stronger, with more ships. The Council may ignore us, but the Drexari won't. They've smelled potential here." Mara sat beside him, quiet for a moment. "So, what's the plan?" He slid the blade into its sheath. "We keep building. We turn this camp into something bigger, stronger. Not just a settlement, an attraction. Something that doesn't look like prey, but like profit. The galaxy respects profit." She laughed softly, shaking her head. "You really are insane." "Maybe," he admitted. "But if we can turn a death world into paradise, even raiders will think twice before burning it. Nobody destroys a resort worth visiting." Her laughter faded into thought. For the first time, she saw the shape of his vision clearly. Not just the survival, not just defiance, but transformation. A death sentence rewritten as an invitation. And though fear lingered in her chest, so too did something else. Hope. The night passed without further attack. But the galaxy was stirring. The Drexari would spread word of what they had found. Humans alive where none should live, thriving where none should thrive. The Council had meant to bury humanity. Instead, they had planted a seed, and it was growing fast. The landing base of Orpheus Prime buzzed with an electricity that was half wonder, half unease. The Council had called for a grand assembly, ostensibly to review the human experiment on the death world of Charon 6. But everyone knew the truth. The galaxy's most arrogant powers had been embarrassed, and now they wanted answers. Holographic feeds from dozens of species projected into the chamber, their delegates whispering about the impossible. Charon 6 was meant to be a graveyard, a place so savage that nothing short of a war god could survive a season. And yet, Humans had not only survived, they had thrived, prospered, and, in their own unfathomable way, turned it into a joke. The chamber doors boomed open. The first human delegation strolled in, not in battle armor, not carrying weapons, but dressed in garishly colorful clothing, patterned with florals, suns, and planetary symbols. Their leader, Ambassador Vega, carried what looked like a folded trifold. He walked with the grin of a street magician, about to reveal his final card trick. "Honorable Council," he said, voice smooth as polished steel. "We bring our findings from Charon 6. The Zirathi representative, a towering mantis being, clicked its mandibles. "Findings? You were dropped there to die. You were abandoned, sacrificed." "And yet, here we are," Vega replied, his smile widening. "Alive. Better than alive, actually. We've prepared a little presentation." With theatrical flair, he snapped open the trifold. Every holoprojector in the room lit up with brochure imagery. Towering crystalline cliffs labeled, "Perfect for climbing," with panoramic views at the top. Rivers of molten metal captioned, "Hot springs and spa treatments, courtesy of planetary geology." A titanic predator, jaws dripping acid, relabeled, "Friendly wildlife, excellent for photo ops." The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shout, some horrified, some incredulous, some choking on laughter. "This is a mockery," hissed a reptilian diplomat. "Your species has lost its sanity," roared another. But then, beneath it all, came murmurs of something else. Respect, fear, curiosity. Vega let the uproar swell before holding up a hand. His voice cut through the din like a blade. "You wanted to prove humans were weak, that we couldn't adapt, couldn't endure what you called a certain death world. But to us, danger is just another name for opportunity. Every impossible environment you call lethal, we call it Tuesday. Every monster you call unbeatable, we call it dinner or a pet. And every trap you set for us, we turn into a game." The screens shifted. Now they showed humans laughing while riding the backs of venomous leviathans, teaching alien birds to sing, carving entire settlements into cliffsides, throwing festivals under skies of stormfire. "We didn't just survive," Vega said softly. "We advertised it." A silence fell. For the first time, the Galactic Council realized what it meant that humanity had sent back a brochure instead of a plea for rescue. Not only had humans redefined the challenge, they had owned it. They had made it something desirable, marketable. Already, younger races would look at Charon 6 and think, if humans can thrive there, maybe we can too. The galaxy's predators and empires had tried to humiliate Earth. Instead, Earth had created the galaxy's first tourism industry on a death world. Vega snapped the brochure shut and smiled his human smile, the one that made predators shift in their seats. "So, dear Council," he said, "the only question left is, would you like a group discount?" The chamber exploded. Some screamed. Some laughed. Some whispered in terrified awe. But one truth burned brighter than all the noise. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never laugh at them the same way again. Subscribe to the Void Narratives for more HFYA. HFY stories, where humanity takes the impossible and makes it ours.